Assalamu alaikum and good evening, everyone. This is Aisha Ravan, a core team member from Girls Fly Pakistan. Girls Fly Pakistan organization operates in 16 different countries, and we work towards the socio-economic upliftment of women and youth, and we try to connect them to international opportunities. Today, we are thrilled to introduce our session regarding Fulbright. As applications are currently open, so it's a good chance for you to get your questions answered and hear from the experience of their alumna. Without further ado, let's welcome our special guest, Ifra. She's a Fulbright scholar currently studying at Columbia University. Over to you, Ifra, to introduce yourself and lead the session.
Hi everyone, good evening. Okay, Aisha, can you all hear me?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay, perfect. Good evening everyone. I'm Ifra. Actually, I'll just share my screen because I've written my intro there as well. But it's very nice to be here, and thank you so much, Aisha, for having me. I'm just going to start sharing my screen. If you guys think at any point I'm going too fast, just let me know. Or if you also cannot share my screen, let me know as well. Cannot see my screen, let me know as well. Oh, okay. Is it visible to you all?
I guess it's not visible. Okay, now it's visible.
Now it is. Okay. Okay, I've opened this window on my screen, so I'm not seeing the Google Meet window. If anyone has a question, if you cannot see my screen at any point, please just turn on your mic and let me know. Cool? Okay, I
Yes,
cannot hear you.
perfect.
Okay, cool. I'm just going into slideshow. All right, so I'm Ifra. I'm originally from Lahore. I'm studying at Columbia University School of International and Public Affairs, which is also called SIPA. It's the public policy school. I came here in August 2023, so I'm here from 2023 to 2025. I'm majoring in economic and political development and specializing in international conflict resolution. The SIPA has a major and a minor. I've worked for 3 years in Pakistan. My past experience for 2 years was in national security, and then I transitioned to economic development because I did my undergrad in economics and political science, so I wanted to work in both of those fields. And now I'm working in international governance on the side. So I've done a couple of internships that I'll speak about later, but they largely fall under international governance and development. That's me. The picture on the left is me during my first week at Columbia. It was the orientation week. And the picture on the right is me at the UN when I worked there. So, what is Fulbright? Fulbright is a US State Department funded scholarship for both master's and PhD. The State Department funds it entirely themselves for masters, and for PhD, they have a collaboration with HEC Pakistan. In both cases, you come here, you're fully funded, you get a stipend. Stipend varies across states. So if you're living in a state, for example, New York or Boston or Massachusetts or something like that, where things are very expensive, you're going to get more stipend. But regardless of how much you get, it's basically just enough to cover your needs. So when you come on Fulbright, you have to be very mindful about the way you spend. You cannot really live as lavishly as you do in Pakistan. You just have to really be mindful of your expenses. Fulbright makes you sign a 2-year return condition after master's and a 5-year return condition after PhD. It means that once you complete your degree, you have to go back home, you have to work there, and you cannot apply for H-1B or F-1 or any other visa or any other living arrangement that allows you to live in the US permanently. So you can only come back to the US on a tourist visa, but nothing else. The only exception to this rule is that if you're enrolled in a master's program and then you instantly get a PhD, then Fulbright transfers you to F1 because the visa you get on Fulbright is J1, which is just an exchange student visitor visa. If you get a PhD right after your master's, you have to return for 5 plus 2 years. People do try to find ways around this return condition. They try to stay here, but if they find out about it or if there is something that goes bad, then you can just be put on blacklist or something. And the other exception is that after working, if you get a job at an international organization, because then you are no longer related to the State Department, you're just an employee of an international organization, then you can stay here. But that is also as long as you have a job, and then you have to go back. So regardless, there's no there's no way you can entirely evade these conditions. You are going to have to return to Pakistan. And that's the whole purpose of this scholarship, because they want to make sure there's no brain drain. They want to make sure they train you, they send you to best universities, and then you go back and serve Pakistan. Fulbright is currently receiving applications. The timeline has changed since the time I applied. So back then it used to open in February and end in June, but now they've changed the timeline from December to March. Did someone raise a hand or what? Yes, Rola,
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. It's a great honor to be talking with you right now
no problem.
in the part of this amazing session. No doubt you are so great. And let me ask you, ma'am, the question that really clicked in my mind is all about the eligibility criteria.
Yes,
So the question is all about that. Yeah. May I
yes,
ask, ma'am?
yeah, sure, sure.
Thank you so much. The question is that over there it was written that it is only for Pakistani citizens. And how about Afghan refugees? You might have idea about that. So could you tell me something about that?
Yes, sure. I'm getting to the eligibility criteria in a minute. So if you guys can maybe just drop your questions in the chat box, I can get through the presentation and then we'll do our question answer session. About Afghan refugees. Thanks, Aisha. About Afghan refugees, can you just drop that question in the chat box and I'll answer it when I answer the rest of the questions?
Okay, ma'am. Okay, why not? Why not?
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so for the eligibility criteria, generally it's Pakistani citizens. You have to have completed your 4 years of bachelor's or your 2 years of master's. And Fulbright is for all disciplines except for clinical medicine. So you cannot get a Fulbright if you want to go and do your specialization after your MBBS, but you can get a Fulbright if you want to go for MPH, which is Masters in Public Health or something else that's related to medicine, but just not specific specialization to become a doctor. And for people who are interested in Masters in Public Policy, Masters in Public Administration, and MBA, Fulbright wants you to have a 2 year work experience because these are very practical fields. And if you come to these programs without having any practical experience, then you might lag behind because these are very competitive and your peers are coming from all sorts of organizations. So for that, you need to have a 2 year work experience. But for anything else, psychology, sociology, any other discipline, math, engineering, you can come right out of undergrad. For Fulbright, the requirements are your transcript and your degree, which means that you need to have completed your undergrad. You need to have those documents in hand. Your GRE. GRE has to be taken before the deadline. So before March, when you submit your application, you need to have your GRE score. When you take GRE, you instantly get your score. So even if you get it on the last day, it's fine. You can always submit USCFP's code to the GRE degree and GRE to the GRE report, and GRE just directly sends that report to them. So you don't have to worry about it. But you have to take it before the deadline. You need 3 letters of recommendation. By letters of recommendation, I mean that your professors or your supervisors at work have to explain why you are such a good fit for Fulbright. And it should not be very generic, something like, oh, this is a great person, oh, he'll do great. It has to specifically talk about your strengths, why they think you are such a good fit for Fulbright. For 3 recommendations, the recommended split is 2-1. So 2 academic and 1 professional recommendation. Because Fulbright is an academic program, don't go for all 3 professional recommendations, or don't go for 2 professional and 1 academic. Try to cultivate a relationship with your professors or just start emailing them in advance, telling them that you really need them to write your recommendation. Because for an academic program, your professors need to tell them why you're such a good fit. And then of course your supervisor can also explain, your strengths at work, your ability to gel well with different kinds of people. um, 2 essays. I'll speak about the essays details in a bit, but you need 2 essays, 750 words each or 700, it varies. And then you need your CV, which obviously needs to list everything you've done up till now, and miscellaneous. So miscellaneous documents includes anything that you've published, if you're into research and you've published a paper, or if you have any certificate, any certification, or something like that, anything that you think will actually make your application stand out, you can also attach that. For 2 essays, there's one called study objectives, and the other is called personal statement. So Fulbright wants you to completely focus on your study plans, coursework, preferred professors, and explain what it is you want to do after you complete your degree when you're writing the study objectives. What people do is that people misunderstand the difference. People just don't really understand the difference between personal statement and study objectives, and they write the exact same thing in both of them. Don't do that. In study objectives, be very clear about why you want to pursue a particular program, and don't even go for fancy start like, oh, I'll just use Chat GPT or something to, you know, write words, write flowery language. Don't do that. Start clearly. I want to do a master's in this particular field, and then explain why you have chosen that program, explain how it links with your background, talk about your undergrad, talk about the work you've done up till now if you have actually work experience, and then explain how this links up with your career plans, things you want to do afterwards. And do not mention specific universities because Fulbright is very clear that you're not supposed to tell them which universities you want to go to when you're filling out this part of the application. For personal statement, this is basically a story of your life, your journey up till now, how you ended up here. So if you're from Afghanistan and you lived in Pakistan, that is a major part of your life. Explain that in your personal statement. Talk about any issues you faced while adjusting to this new life. But just be very clear that do not share a sob story. Don't tell them, oh, I don't have money, I really need to go. Because Fulbright is a merit based scholarship. Fulbright is not a need based scholarship. Fulbright does not discriminate if you're super rich or if you have limited means of income. They want to make sure they're sending the best people. So talk about your journey up till now, but in a way that you can show them how you stand out. Talk about your extracurriculars, your life goals. How do you want to serve Pakistan afterwards? This one example, we were given this example many years ago when I first attended a Fulbright session, that there was this guy who wanted to tell them that he had limited means of income, but he also did not make it sound like he was trying to gain sympathy. So what he did was that he wrote something like, living in a one-bedroom apartment, hearing traffic on the street, made me capable of studying under any circumstances. So that not only showed that he had limited means of income and he really needed the scholarship, but it also spoke to his character about how he acclimatized in that environment where he grew up. So things like these, any hindrances that he faces in his life, these things don't bother him because he's able to manage everything. And that's really important to Fulbright because when you come to the US, you're going to be facing a plethora of issues. People in different states face different issues. So they need to know that you're able to gel well, you're able to adjust yourself into a different environment. For university selection, look up universities that are highly relevant to your program. Research those specific professors whose work interests you and who you want to work with. For example, when I was coming to Columbia, I looked up a professor that I really liked in international conflict resolution, and then I wrote her name in the study objectives. So I didn't tell them that I wanted to go to Columbia. I told them that I would really like to work with this professor because her research really inspires me and it really aligns with my career objectives. And this way, you're also subtly telling them that this particular university is on my radar and I would really like to go there. So look for ways where you can just really nicely or calmly talk about your preferences without really throwing it in their face. And also don't go for big names just for the sake of it. Don't write Harvard, Columbia, Princeton just because you think you want to go there. If you're going for a data program, NYU has a better data program than Columbia. So maybe you might want to put it on top. And Fulbright would really appreciate if you have researched into your field, if you've researched into the kind of programs you want to go to, and don't just throw names, because there's no guarantee that the names you write are actually going to be the ones where you'll end up. For the first part of the application, this one that you're submitting now, you only need to write 4 names of universities, but there's a blank box, or there used to be one, I'm not sure now, where you could just list up any extra names. So you could add up to 10. And then be sure to rank them in order of preference. So the program that is most relevant to your degree, write it on top, then the second one, then the third one, then the fourth one. And also be sure to add a safe school or a more realistic choice. So you could see your GRE score and think and like analyze whether this first choice place that you really want to go is also a realistic choice for you or not. You can also see your GPA or your overall application and be like, do you think you'll end up in that first choice or do you want to add another safe school? But don't worry too much about university selection because after people who are shortlisted and who clear the interview, Fulbright gets back to you with another application. And that's where you have to add your final university selection in consultation with them. So anything that you write now and that you write right now, it's not going to necessarily be your final preference. The shortlisted candidate, so up till March, they receive all applications. Then April, probably May as well, is the time where they vet the applications. And then June onwards or end of May, they start calling people for interviews. And that's how they did last year. When I applied for Fulbright in 2022, we got our interview calls in September. And And sometimes people get interview calls in batches. So if you know someone who got the interview call in May and now it's like, I don't know, the second week of June, don't worry about it. You can also reach out to USCFP and check with them about their timeline. But generally, shortlisted candidates start getting calls and then they give you an interview date that's not so far, it's probably within a week or so. And the interview is a panel interview with 3 to 5 interviewers. So there's going to be, normally there are 2 Pakistanis, 1 American, and a moderator, but this ratio can vary depending on whether there are 4 people or 5 people. The interview is 10 minutes maximum. So it's super short, super concise. They want really to the point answers. And they're basically trying to assess whether you wrote this entire application yourself. And even if you got help from someone else, do you really know what you've written or not? So this is an assessment of not just your application, but also your social skills, your ability to explain why you want to go to the US. You have to explain your career plans to them in person, well, virtually, but like you'll be speaking everything yourself. Before the interview, read your essays thoroughly. Know what you write in the personal statement and study objectives because they have those things opened up in front of them when they're interviewing you. So they will ask you specific question from your study objectives. Why did you write this? Why do you want to go for this program? And if you cannot justify it, it will reflect poorly on you. So people who go to these consultancies and get their personal statements and study objectives written, if they cannot justify it in the interview, they don't get selected. So just getting shortlisted after the application is no guarantee that you'll also go through the interview as well. So you have to really justify your answers, and they're very clear. They're very particular about knowing why you want to go to the US. What is it in the US that you cannot get in Pakistan? So talk about not just your program, but also the overall experience, because studying in the US is very different from studying in Pakistan. The environment is very diverse, the level of education is very diverse, the peer-to-peer connection is very diverse. So you might want to talk about all of this stuff. And be very clear about your intent to come back to Pakistan and serve in the country, because Fulbright wants to know that you're not coming to the US with the intention to stay here. Even if you have plans for PhD afterwards and you want to find that way to stay here, don't mention it in the interview. Because if you're going for masters and then you say, oh, after masters, I'm going to look for F1 and then stay there, you won't get Fulbright. It's not just Fulbright that's very clear about you coming back to Pakistan, but it's also the US embassy where you'll go after your interview or after you're clearing the Fulbright process. And even there, if you talk about your any chance of staying back in the US, you won't get a visa. So just be very clear that I just want to go there for 2 years and I want to come back and I want to serve Pakistan in XYZ capacity. The questions in the interview, they range from your study plans, things that I've talked about earlier. Why do you want to go to this university? What do you want to do there? What do you want to study? How does it align with your career? The rationale for choosing the US. Why do you want to go to the US itself? What is it in the US that you cannot get in Pakistan or Europe or anywhere else? Your career goals, what specifically you want to do afterwards. So for career goals, be very particular about not just the field you want to work in, but a specific role you want to work in. For example, I shared my trajectory, like this potential trajectory that I had in my head. When I come back, I want to work here, and then I'm going to go to policy making, and I'm going to reach this level, and how Fulbright fits into all of those plans. And then a major part of the interview is also cultural exchange, because in the end, Fulbright is a cultural exchange program. So they're not just getting you, not just sponsoring you and making you come to the US out of the goodness of their heart. It's basically a soft liberal program. They want to make sure you come to the US, you learn stuff here, and obviously don't mention it to them, but this is what it is. They want you to come to the US, they want you to learn stuff here, they want you to go back, and then they want you to develop a soft corner for the US. In IR, there's hard power and there's soft power. So Fulbright is basically soft power. And obviously, when you come to the US, you see the life here, you see the people here, there's stuff you learn, and then you go back and then you have a nice and positive view of them. Because not only did they help you come here, they also help you live here for 2 years, learn stuff. So talk about that. Tell them that I want to come to the US and I want to learn XYZ things and I want to come back and implement them in Pakistan as well. And not just that, also tell that I want to bring things with me from Pakistan and share them with others. For example, some people talk about the perception that people in the US have of Pakistan. So you can tell them, I feel like me going there will allow me to help people change their perception of Pakistan in XYZ things. So it has a big cultural element to it. And they also want to make sure that regardless of which background you're coming from in Pakistan, you're able to gel well with different people in the US. Socioeconomic strata, etc., don't matter here. So in a university, you're going to be studying with people who are be like super rich, people who won't be very rich, people who are coming from different sorts of areas, from different parts of the world, and they want to make sure that you feel comfortable with all of them. So be very respectful towards other people and tell them that I'm really looking forward to this cultural exchange part. Speaking about my experience, I would say that Fulbright has easily been the best time of my life up till now. I do hope it gets better from here, but I have had the time of my life. I have had a lot of personal and professional growth. I lived in a very coddled environment in Pakistan. I didn't have to do household chores myself or things like that. But ever since I've come here, I've become a handyman. I go out and get my groceries. I clean the house myself. I do laundry myself. I also study, and it's very liberating. It just feels very independent, and the ability to navigate your own life without having someone to constantly tell you what you need to do. It's great in terms of personal growth. And then in terms of professional growth, Fulbright gives lots of networking opportunities. Not just Fulbright, but also like living in the US. So if you're on Fulbright throughout the journey or throughout your program makes sure that they pair you up with different people in different fields. So not only is that great, but also the networking opportunities you get when you study in these universities. Wait, is that okay? No, sorry. Um, and then when you study in a university like this, anywhere in the US, you meet lots and lots of people from different walks of life. That's amazing, and that also not just helps you during the course of your program, but also afterwards when you want to find a job and maybe you want remote jobs, so you can go back to Pakistan and work here, still work in the US. These networking opportunities are amazing. I have also traveled around the US and Europe because of Fulbright, not because the stipend was amazing, because I got really good at saving money and then spending it which where I thought, was worth it. But also because once you have the US visa on your passport and they know that you're on a state-funded scholarship, it gets very easy for you to get visas to other different countries because it adds a sort of credibility to you. And that's really helpful. And even within the US, you can just go to different places. You don't have to worry about there are places where you can go because you have the US visa and then you don't need another visa. So Caribbean and places like that, that's amazing for traveling. And then there are just different parts of the US that you never really imagine you'd be able to see. For example, I recently went to Hawaii. Never imagined in my life that I would go to Hawaii. And I'm so grateful to Fulbright that they allowed me to come to this different part. I'm also working on this Instagram page called Ifra in New York because I'm a big fan of Emily in Paris, and I thought I would just make this page and share my life. So if anyone's interested, you can check that out as well. And I would totally recommend you all to apply for Fulbright because I think this is going to be one of the best experiences you can ever get. And you're going to learn so much from it that even when you go back to Pakistan, it's just going to stay with you. These are some of the pictures I wanted to add. I went to Pakistan versus India in New York. Funnily enough, I was sitting in that enclosure where there were Indians all around me, and we were doing so well in the first innings that it just went haywire from there. So I was really sad, but this was before I got sad. I'm a big fan of Twilight, so I went to Forks, the place where Twilight movie was shot. I went to Disneyland, and these are all the places that I never thought I would go to. I also went to the Friends set in California. But one thing that I also wanted to share, coming here to the US and studying in a university, you really have to start finding a community where you feel at home. So you have many societies like PSA, which is Pakistan Students Association, MSA, which is Muslim Students Association, South Asia Students Association. So when you meet people from different walks of life, you feel like, okay, there's so many other people who can relate to what I'm going through. If you're having trouble with housing, you can always connect with other people. If you're having trouble with food, you can always connect with other people. And then if you look at the top right corner, we can see the arch. That's us praying Eid ki Namaz, basically, at Washington Square Park, which is right next to NYU. And it was just super heartwarming to see so many people sitting there, like Muslims from all across the world. And it was the first time in my life that I also saw people accept Islam in front of me. So the Muslim community at NYU was so strong that people would actually go there and attend their events, even if they were not Muslim. And then before Eid Namaz, people would actually come up and accept Islam. That was very wonderful. And the picture in the bottom right corner is Colombia during the Palestine protests. So I got to see all of that when I was here because the whole thing with Gaza started on October 7th, and that was my first semester. And then I saw Colombia go from this super open liberal institute to this university that would repress the students, that would call police on their students. And I think that that was also a learning experience in its own, because then you realize who your real allies are and who are not. And then seeing this global community come together for Palestine and talk about intifada and protest on campus and resist the administration, that was amazing as well. Because in Pakistan, it's very easy to call police on students, but in the US it's not. So calling the police on students was a big deal here. And I saw how the university or how the students dealt with it. So we would have protests on campus, we would have ID checks everywhere. It was just a very difficult, but also an interesting time to live. And I think that is also one experience that I can share with people the rest of my life, that I was there when this happened. So yeah, so all in all, it has been a very diverse, it has been a journey full of diverse experiences, good, bad, things that I really had to struggle with, things that I had to make myself okay with. But just generally know that you'll find people who will also be going through the same stuff as you, and you'll also will just be able to find community and find strength in others. And that's it. So questions. I'm just gonna stop sharing the screen now so I can go back to the Meet screen, and then you guys can ask questions. I'll just see if anyone has written anything in the chat box. Is it Aftab? Is it fully funded scholarship? Yes, it is fully funded. Oh, sorry, let me stop. It is fully funded, and then you also get a stipend. So you don't have to worry about that. They not only fund your tuition, but they also fund your journey, your visa, the international student fee. When you go to Islamabad to get your visa, you first have to obviously pay for petrol or bus ticket yourself, but then you can share receipts with USCFP in Islamabad. So even your commute in Pakistan regarding anything that you do for Fulbright, that is also covered. But the only thing that you have to be mindful of when you come to the US after you get selected for Fulbright is that you cannot leave the country for more than a month. Because if you leave the country for more than a month, then they deduct your stipend. So coming here, going back to Pakistan, all of that is okay. But when you come and then you go back to Pakistan, you obviously have to fund your own ticket. But anything related to Fulbright, all of that is fully funded. Lisa, in personal statement, do we have to justify why we're choosing this specific major for masters? Yes, you have to, because not in personal statement, in study objectives. Study objectives are the one where you have to justify why you're choosing a particular field. You have to explain your rationale. You have to link it with the background, with your background up till now, things you've studied. For example, I did my undergrad in economics and political science, and then for here, when I was applying to like I had Columbia in my mind, but I didn't specifically say that I'm going to go for Columbia because obviously that's not allowed. But I told them I'm going to go for a degree that's a combination of economics and political science. So you have to justify it. You have to link it to your background as well. If someone is appearing for civil services, can we mention that? Yes, of course you can. Fulbright, lots of civil servants are here on Fulbright, but Hamza, could you please mute yourself? Thank you. If you're appearing for civil services exam, you can mention that you want to come back and work as a civil servant in Pakistan. Then if you're not sure which field within civil services you want to go for, just talk about something that aligns with your career goals. Don't say that I just want to take the exam and I'll see where they place me, because that just shows that you're appearing for civil services just because it gives you job security or something. Just maybe talk about foreign service or revenue if you're going for finance or something like that. Just very particular about things you want to do. How important is the GRE score? Okay, so GRE is not very important. GRE is important, but GRE is not everything. Fulbright says that the minimum cutoff for GRE that they accept is 145. So obviously get something more than 145. But different programs have different requirements for GRE. In Pakistan, GRE is considered as this big collective score, 230 or whatever. I don't know if it's 230, yeah, whatever. But in the US or for universities, they look at different components of GRE. So they look at the quant score separately, the verbal score separately, and essay score separately. So if you get 150 on 160 in quant, that's considered good. If you got 148 out of 170 on verbal or something, but you're going for a quant intensive program, for example, data, your verbal might not matter that much to them. So they're going to look at your quant score and be like, okay, this person has good understanding of quant. This person will be a good fit for our program. So for Fulbright, GRE is important, but Fulbright looks at your application in a holistic manner. So they want to make sure that you have a good GPA. They want to make sure that you have a good, like reasonably good GRE score. They want to make sure that your other extracurricular activities or your life journey up till now complements the program that you want to go for. So it's very holistic. Your letters of recommendation matter a lot. So like when you talk to your professors or your supervisor, tell them that you want them to talk about why this person is such a good fit for Fulbright, what strengths this person already has, and how they think Fulbright can add more value to your personality. So it has to be completely catered to you. For a CV, does it need to be a usual one pager? Can you have two pager? No, CV has to be one pager. Unless you have like 8, 9 years of experience, it is not recommended to let your CV go beyond one page, regardless of whether you're applying for Fulbright or not. So when you apply for jobs as well, they don't have the time to go through 2 pages. If you have lots and lots of experience, pick and choose the things that are relevant to the program. So you cannot list everything like teaching assistant, intern, volunteer, blah 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 blah. Just pick and choose important stuff that you think makes sense to the program and add it, but just keep it to one page. And go for a CV that's considered internationally. For example, Harvard Law format is considered internationally as the most reputable CV format. Don't go for a format where you put your picture, then you write your name in bold, and then you give a big heading. That just makes it feel very cluttered. Um, is it possible without IELTS? Yeah, of course. Fulbright doesn't need IELTS. For Fulbright, you need TOEFL, but you don't need to take TOEFL right now. The only standardized test you need to take is GRE before submitting an application. And once you're selected, once you go to the interview, you clear everything. That's when Fulbright wants you to take TOEFL, and they pay for TOEFL themselves. So you don't have to pay for TOEFL. You don't have to worry about IELTS. You don't have to worry about any standardized language test right now. Just be sure that you have a good grasp of language, because once you take TOEFL, that's when it's going to come in handy. Government servants are eligible for Fulbright. Yes, government servants are eligible for Fulbright. I have a lot of my peers are from civil services. There are no plus points for government employees because they don't want to discriminate like that. I think the only plus point for government employees is that when you come on a paid leave, you keep getting your salary in Pakistan. So that's just a plus point the government gives you. Fulbright doesn't. It just okay. It just shows that for Fulbright, you're the same as anyone who's applying right out of undergrad. All that matters is how strong your application is. Some points for Umair, you'll be. I think Aisha, you're going to share the slides with them, right? For points for personal statement, they can take a look at the slides again.
Yes, I will drop in the WhatsApp community.
Okay, I'm just gonna copy paste those points here again for you, Umair. Just give me a minute. Okay, I've just pasted them in the chat. Mhm. Nangyal, what do you mean by is it possible to go for BS study? Is Nangyal in the chat? Yes.
I said that after APC, a student can go for a BS study.
I'm sorry, can you explain what you mean by BS? You mean undergrad, bachelor's?
He's asking about like, are there any fully funded scholarship for undergrad as well?
Oh, right, BS as an undergrad, bachelor's. No, Fulbright is a master's and PhD level program. For undergrad, you can look up State Department and USCFP's other programs, but there are exchange programs for undergrad, such as UGrad. But for those, you already have to be enrolled in a program in Pakistan, and then you go on an exchange program for a semester. But Fulbright is a master's and PhD level program. It allows you to enroll in USCFP, UGrad, Fulbright Masters and PhD. Aisha, how can we enroll for GRE? GRE has its own website. So if you look for GRE, there's ETS is the website which allows you to register for GRE. And how to prepare for it really depends on each individual. I can share this one resource that I used for GRE. It was called gregmat.com. I've entered it in the chat box. This was a really good resource because Greg Matt was this one-stop shop for everything related to GRE. So not only did they have videos, but they also had live lectures. You could ask questions. They had diagnostic tests and everything. But the only problem is that GregMat required a $5 subscription fee back when I joined it. So you had to pay $5 per month for as long as you wanted to use it. I don't know if it's still $5. I don't know if it has changed, but GregMat was really good. And for GRE, the more you practice, the better you get because it's all logical reasoning. They're going to give you the same kind of options in MCQs, and then you just have to like start thinking about which one makes more sense for the question. People who are really good in studies, who are really good in university, sometimes tend not to do that great on GRE, and people who are not that great in university sometimes do brilliantly on GRE because it's all logical reasoning. Raima, I cannot share a 2-week GRE study plan. I've just shared this GregMat resource that you can look up, and then you can just independently look up any other resources that you think are helpful. Magoosh is another resource. You can also enter this name in the chat box. That's for PhD prep. But the rest really, really depends on you. If you want to study 15 hours a day, you can maybe do really well on GRE instantly. But if you want to span out you want to plan your studies for, I don't know, 6 months for GRE, then that's a different plan. They read 3 recommendations. How are they? How much important are they? And where we go. So 3 recommendations. You want 2 recommendations from your professors and 1 recommendation from work. But if you do not have any work experience, then just get all 3 from your professors. But academic recommendations are super important. How important are they? They're very important. So the recommendations are the ones where someone is basically testifying to your character, why this person is so good, why this person is a good fit. You get them from your professors and your work. So from where you just have to reach out to your professors. So start emailing any professor that you like, someone you had a personal connection with. Another thing that people do is that if your university has like someone who's a giant in their field, this amazing person who's like super well known internationally, you might want to get 1 recommendation from them just because their name is so important, everyone knows them. But for the other recommendation, you might want to get it from someone who knows you personally. So that professor might not be a tenured professor, like super well known in the field, but he or she is someone you've closely worked with because he can speak to your character. And then this also goes for work. So if you're working at an organization where you have, for example, I used to work at SERP, and SERP had lots of, SERP is this Center for Economic Research in Pakistan, it's in Lahore, that they used to work with lots and lots of professors from international universities. So if you're working at a place like that, don't do work very closely with them. So one recommendation from someone who's highly well known in their field, one recommendation from someone who knows you very well, and the third recommendation can depend on another person who knows you very well, and the third recommendation can depend on another of your supervisor or something. But the recommendations are super important. Let me know if this answers your question. Ashim, can you talk about more GRE prep? How can I prepare for it? About Fulbright if you're currently on a master's scholarship? GRE, I think I've just explained it. I've shared 2 resources for it. For GRE, the more you prep, the better, of course. The more diagnostic tests you take, the better. But then again, GRE is not everything. There are many programs that don't even require GRE. So you have to take GRE because it's a condition for Fulbright, but your score might not matter that much to the actual programs you're intended to apply for. For example, the year that the COVID years, none of the universities asked for GRE. I don't know if Fulbright still required it or not, but the universities waived GRE that year. It also matters what program you're applying for. So if you're applying for a writing program, like creative writing or something, you just want to make sure that you get a really good GRE essay score. Quant does not matter to you. I mean, of course, it matters because Fulbright wants you to get more than 145, but you don't have to spend that much time for quant prep when you prep for GRE. So, do smart prep and not necessarily 10 diagnostics for quant, 10 diagnostics for verbal, 10 diagnostics for essay. So just cater the GRE prep to your individual plans. How long can I prepare for it? As long as you want, but March 30th, I think it's 31st March is probably the deadline, end of March. So you want to make sure that you take GRE before the end of deadline, because when you submit your Fulbright application, you have to enter your GRE score there. One thing I would recommend, don't leave submitting an application till the last day, because there have been many cases where the portal just goes down because everyone is using it at the same time. So start submitting your applications maybe 2-3 days in advance. So if there are any problems, you can always reach out to USCFP with enough time to resolve those problems. Can you apply for PhD Fulbright if you're currently on a master's scholarship? Hashim, if you're on a master's scholarship in Pakistan, of course you can. But if you're on Fulbright masters, then you cannot instantly apply for Fulbright PhD. I don't know if it still makes you eligible for Fulbright PhD after a couple of years. That's one technicality that I cannot answer. I'm sorry. You might want to reach out to USCFP if you did your master's on Fulbright as well, and then you want to go for PhD on Fulbright as well. I do know that generally the condition is that once you get a state-funded scholarship, you're not eligible for another state-funded scholarship for 2 years. I came to the US during my undergrad on a state-funded scholarship, and that was my third year of university. So I was told that I could not come for Fulbright until, or like any other US State Department funded scholarship, until those 2 years had passed. So for this, you might want to check with them. Zaima, co-curriculars, how important are they? Volunteer work is very important for Fulbright, and just generally all these international programs, they like it when people have some sort of volunteer experience. It could be with any organization in Pakistan. About extracurriculars, extracurriculars are always good to have. So if you're in debates, that's good. If you play sports, that's also good, because it shows that you're not just focused on studies. What they're looking for is a well-rounded individual, someone who's good at studies, but someone who's good outside of studies as well. So any extracurricular that you want to do, if you're part of a literature society, that's amazing. If you're into leadership, if you teach students in your free time, like house help or something, that's also amazing. That will also be considered your extracurricular. And remember that they don't ask for certificates for extracurricular. So even if you've done something to a very little extent, you can always mention it. You don't necessarily have to back it up with like 5 years of experience in this one particular debating society or something. So extracurriculars are important. I have an undergraduate degree in IR, applying for development economics, don't have work experience, internship and Pill youth programs, No, development economics is good. You can still apply for development economics. Just try to justify why you're going for development economics. IR and economics go hand in hand. So of course, international relations and international political economy cannot be divorced from economics. You can definitely apply for development economics, but you apply development studies instead. That's your question. You should actually check the fields of study that are available in Fulbright, and if there's one in the Fulbright application, if there's one that says development studies, you're right. That might actually make more sense, unless you can justify how economics is going to help you in your future career plans. Then you can keep it development economics, because it's not just about your undergrad degree; it's about your future career plans as well. Your internship is fine. Not having work experience is also fine. Development economics is not that one field that requires work experience, unless you're going for MPP or MPA, because development economics is also part of Masters in Public Policy and Public Administration. So if you're going for Masters in Science in Development Economics or something like that, then you don't need work experience. But if your larger degree is MPA or MPP, and then you write development economics, then you need work experience. So once you get into Fulbright, you do have the liberty, like once you're placed into a university and everything, you do have the liberty to tweak your fields of study, because at least Columbia is not strict like that. So once you come here, Fulbright then no longer cares what's very particular field you're studying in, and then you can always change your major. Don't go for like engineering to sociology, because Fulbright obviously doesn't allow that, but you can always make small modifications. Lisa, I hope that answers your question. If not, you can always ask another one. Are we going to have a written recommendation letterhead? Yes, you'll be sent out links. They just to make sure that you don't tamper with the recommendation yourself. Once you go to the portal and you have to enter details of your referees, they always say that enter professional email addresses. For example, a university with .edu or an organization with .org, a professional email address. But in case your professor or someone has already left that organization and don't have a professional address, you can still enter their Gmail address or Yahoo address, but it has to come directly from them. You won't be involved in the recommendation process beyond the fact that you just enter their details. Letterhead is not needed because Fulbright recommendations are electronic. So they're going to send them that link, and then your professor or your supervisor just has to fill out that link and submit it directly from their side. You don't have to do anything. What other scholarships did I apply for? Oh, I actually applied for Fulbright thrice. This is the third time I got Fulbright. So don't be disheartened if you don't get it the first time. The first time I applied for Fulbright, I basically applied for Fulbright 3 years. That's the scholarship I applied for. I was like, I need to come to the US and I need a fully funded scholarship to come here. So this is my only chance. Um, for the first time I applied Fulbright, I did not know about the 2 year work condition for MPP and MPA. So I just applied right out of university. Well, even like in my last semester. And obviously my application got rejected because they wanted 2 year work experience since I'm in public policy. The second year I applied for Fulbright, I got selected. I reached the interview stage and then I flunked my interview. I said some not so soft liberal stuff because I thought, oh, I'm going for, political science. I can be very honest about my views, global stuff, hegemony, etc. But Fulbright was like, no. So the third year I applied, I realized that you have to be very diplomatic in your interview. You have to tell them how amazing the US is, how you're looking, how important soft power is, that how important it is for Pakistan and US's relations if if this exchange program continues and stuff like that. Just be super nice to them. Yeah, so this is my third year. Would you talk about GRE, online test, how to prepare? Varud, I think I might have answered your question, but how you can prepare for it is I've shared two resources. Those are the two resources that I used. GRE is an online test. Since COVID, GRE has given you this option. But I don't know if they still do it, but at least for the last couple of years, GRE allowed you to take a test at home, or you could also go to a diagnostic center. FC has that place where the diagnostic tests take place in person. There's this Prometric testing center at FC College Lahore, and obviously each city has its own. I think there are a bunch of others in Lahore as well, but you can take GRE in person there as well or at home. But in both cases, it is an online test. So it is a portal. You sign into it. The test is in front of you. It's a timed test. So for each section, there's a specific time within which you have to complete it. At the end of, I don't know, when I took it, there were 5 sections. So at the end of two sections, they would give you a 10-minute break. You could go to the bathroom, etc. But then you would come back and just, start the online test again. Just be sure not to cheat on it because people try to find different shortcuts. Like, I don't know, if I'm taking it at home, I'll have someone sit on the other side and just, answer my questions for me. Don't do that because even if you take it at home, there's a proctor on your screen. So someone is constantly looking at you through the webcam. Regardless, you cannot cheat. It's obviously recommended not to cheat. And from about how I prepared for it, I used GregMat, and then I also did diagnostics, by hand, etc. Possibility of getting fee waiver. Um, Actually, I think there is if you talk to USCFP. I'm not sure. I know that for TOEFL you don't have to pay, but I think if you have extenuating circumstances and if GRE is too much for you to pay, you can email USCFP and talk to them. I think they can accommodate you. Abdul Rahman, I'm answering your question, so you might want to check this with them. Greg Matt, did you do 2 months plan or 1 month plan? Hashim, I did not take I did not subscribe to a specific plan. I don't know if you're talking about something that they have listed as a 2 month plan or 1 month plan. I just paid the fee and then I did it as per my convenience. So because I was working at the time as well, I just, I used to study using Greg Matt in the evenings. And I think in general, it took me like 2 months, but I did not subscribe to a specific 2 month plan or 1 month plan. I would just watch the live videos whenever I had time. I would also watch the recorded videos whenever I had time. I used to do the diagnostics. I just did it as per my convenience. Relentlessly dead. Is it like an English aptitude test? Are you talking about GRE? GRE is not just English, it's English and math. So yes, but it's not necessarily an English aptitude test. It's basically a test of your logical reasoning. It is in English, of course, by virtue of it. But then again, it's not necessarily meant to test your grammar, etc., apart from the essay section. That will happen in TOEFL. Once you get selected and then you take TOEFL, that is the actual English aptitude test. Abdul Wahid, thank you. Okay, GRE, Greg Matt is 8 months at all, $8 a month now. Omer, you quickly went over some points in personal statement that weren't in the documentation. Which points were there? Let me see. Personal statement. In personal statement, the only thing I shared apart from these points was that I gave you an example of someone who wanted to explain to USEFP that they had limited means of income, but also did not want to make it seem like they wanted USEFP to take pity on them or something. So I was telling you that if you want to share that you have limited means of income and you need a fully funded scholarship, do it in a way that's creative. And the story I shared was that this one person told them that living in a one-bedroom apartment, constantly hearing the traffic on the street, made them capable of adjusting in any circumstances. So that way, that person told them that they had limited means of income, but also told them that they're able to adjust regardless of the circumstances. In personal statement, I also said that it's basically your journey up till now, in the sense that things you've done in the past, not just your studies, but any extracurriculars. This is the part where extracurriculars go. You can talk about them. I talked about my debating experience because that was a major part of my life. This is the part where you talk about why you want to go to the US, as in the sense how it aligns with your life goals in general. Back then I was like, I'm really into security policy, so I want to go there because I eventually want to come back and work in security policy. This is where you also explain how you think you can help maybe change the country, things that you're not happy with in the country, and you think your journey can help you with that. So this is all the stuff that does not go in your study objectives. This is personal statement is the part that shows them how well-rounded of a character you are. I hope that answers your question. Is relevant experience a must for health sciences? No, I don't think so, because USCFP's website only says MPP, MPA, and MBA. Health sciences is not mentioned there. So I think you can apply for health sciences even if you don't have a work experience. Was Fulbright the only scholarship I considered, or did I shortlist other scholarships as well? Fulbright was primarily the only one I considered. I was going to apply for cheapening as well, but I already got Fulbright by the time I had to submit the cheapening application. So I didn't, because once you get Fulbright, they tell you that you're not going to apply for any other program. So yes, Fulbright was the one that I considered for years. My sister has to apply for Fulbright. Should you suggest a complete roadmap? Mohammed Nadeem, you cannot apply for Fulbright for bachelor's. Fulbright is just a grad program. For bachelor's, you'll have to look for other programs, maybe direct university scholarships, because Fulbright is just for master's and PhD. Thank you, Tareen. CGPA. I think Fulbright says that anything above 3.5 is considered competitive, but anything under 3, it's a definite no. Anything above 3 is good. Anything above 3.5 puts you in a competitive position. But then, as I explained earlier, CGPA is not the only metric by which they measure you. So I don't know if you go to LUMS, and people tend to say that LUMS has a very strict CGPA metric system. You might get a Fulbright with a 3.3, I think. I don't know. I mean, I cannot really comment on it. I'm not USCFP, but then consider anything above 3 as something that makes you eligible for Fulbright. Abdul Wahid, oh, thank you. March 5th is the deadline for Fulbright. So plan to take your GRE before March 5th. I hold a bachelor's in engineering and MBA, second master's. No, Mohammed Nadeem, you are eligible for a second master's. People come here for second master's. I have a friend here at Columbia who did her first master's in Islamabad, and now she's here for her second master's. And she's also a civil servant. So civil servant, good. Government employees, good. Second master's, third master's, good. BBA honors in HR, 2-year work experience. What master's program would be good for you? Matthew Rahman, you might want to check a business related program. Different universities have different programs. Fulbright lists out a field of there's a whole list of fields where you can apply. Anything that says business, you're good for it. You can also go for public policy because you have a 2-year work experience, and HR is also good for public policy as well. But for each individual university, you'll have to look up those specific universities and the specific degrees they offer. But when you select the Fulbright field of study, you can choose any program for business. I think that should work best for you. Verda, how does the recommendation letter process work? Professor asks student to write a draft. I know that some professors do that. I don't recommend it, because when a student writes a draft, the student writes similar drafts for all 3 recommendations, and then it becomes very obvious that you basically wrote it yourself. So try to talk to your professor, tell them that you would really appreciate it if they can write it themselves, and maybe you can give them some pointers. For example, things I explained earlier. You can tell your professor that they can talk about the amazing stuff you've done under them in during the course of study at their university, and then they can talk about things that Fulbright will add to your personality, how Fulbright will help you do something amazing in this particular field of study. So that's also good. Um, the recommendation itself has to be written by the professor because you won't have access to the link. The professor will write the recommendation, the professor will directly submit it. You can send them a Word document or something in advance with a draft, but it's not recommended because it just seems more genuine, more honest if the professor does it themselves. MSc in Media and Communication, can I apply for digital marketing? Relentlessly did. Yes, of course you can. You just have to justify why you're going for digital marketing and just see if I think the field that Fulbright actually has might just be marketing. I'm not sure if it says digital marketing in the field, but you can always qualify it that under this marketing program, I want to specifically focus on digital marketing, and then look up universities that offer digital marketing programs. Abdul Wahid, testing at home is no longer acceptable for Pakistanis. Okay, so then you have to go to a Prometric testing center. Mansoor, for public universities, they give waivers. Is that a question, or are you telling that they give waivers? If they give waivers, then that's great. Zaima, how much CGPA is required? I've just answered this, Zaima, so I hope that answers your question. Thank you, Hashim. Ruullah, yes. Oh, so sorry for getting so late to your question. Afghan refugees. Okay, I don't particularly know the process about Afghan refugees, but I know that when I applied, there were Afghan refugees with us, and there was at that time people also had, because Taliban had just taken over as well. So Fulbright was also very mindful of that. So they were very lenient with them as well. For particular policies on Afghan refugees, I think you should email USCFP. But if you're living in Pakistan, if you have a Pakistani card and everything, you are considered Pakistani by all means. So you can definitely apply. Use Dream Big 25 for 25% off. Okay, thanks, Abdul Wahid. So people who want waivers for GRE, Abdul Wahid has shared some resources here. Nadeem, US universities don't demand IELTS. And again, this program is not for bachelors. This is for grad students only. They don't require IELTS, they require TOEFL. And you don't have to take TOEFL right now. You have to wait till you get shortlisted by Fulbright, you cleared the interview, and then they send you a coupon which you can enter while registering for TOEFL. This way you won't have to pay. Lisa, in person, you have to craft a story in what it did and we want Fulbright Scholarship. Yes, Lisa. Personal statement is basically you crafting a story about your life. Study objectives is specifically about your study goals, and personal statement is anything apart from your study goals. You can obviously mention how that particular what the degree is that you're going for, but it has to be larger than that. Talk about the importance of Fulbright. Um, just try to organize your statement in 2-3 parts. Abdul, sorry, just give me a minute. Try to organize your statement in 2-3 paragraphs. For example, this one paragraph talks about your journey up till now. The second paragraph talks about how Fulbright would help you. The third paragraph talks about your career plans. You can find lots and lots of samples online for all these programs, for all these statements. Aisha, I explained that letters of recommendation, 3 letters of recommendation should be divided into 2, 1. So preferably 2 academic, which means 2 from your professors and 1 from your work supervisor. But if you do not have any work experience, then you can get all 3 from your supervisor, from your professors. So yes, there's a split. What did your profile look like when I applied? Aisha, I had 3 years of work experience, but when I applied, I had 2 years of work experience because Fulbright takes 1 whole year to process your application. And by the time I got selected and came here, I had completed my 3rd year as well. So for all intents and purposes, my application had 2 years of work experience when I applied. And it's just that by the time I came here, 1 more year was added. I think I did not have corporate experience particularly because I was working in policy. So policy is, think tanks, NGOs, stuff like that. I did have diverse experience because I had worked in national security first, and then I had worked in pure economic development, and I was going for a program that was a mix of both. So I think number 1, that was good. Number 2, volunteer. I had worked with a volunteer organization during my A-level for 2-3 years, like I think up until my 1st year of university. So I think that was good as well. That just showed them that I had consistently worked with someone. And I cannot really comment on what made me a strong candidate, but I think it's just that I had work experience, I had a good GPA, um, I probably wrote a good statement, which they liked. I think the third time I did not flunk my interview either, so maybe they liked my interview as well. But it has to be a mix of everything. So yes, and I was very particular about what I wanted to do afterwards. And I explained it to them, like, I mean, I love Pakistan. I'm gonna come back to Pakistan. I want to work for the government, not this government, but like generally work for the government. I had particular career plans that I wanted to follow, and just the more clear you are, the stronger your application is. Hashim, I'm sorry, I cannot share my scholarship application. You can find samples online with other people. Yes, Wahid, Abdul Wahid.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Thank you so much for the elaborate session on the Fulbright program. I just wanted to ask, since you are studying a public policy, you are currently enrolled in a public policy program. I have done a bachelor from FC College with a major in philosophy and literature. I'm currently doing MPhil from Punjab University. I have this desire to do a enroll in a public policy program, but all I have experience is related to teaching. So there was this session in which I asked Rita Akhtar about whether the teaching experience would count or not towards the public policy program. Since you have experience in a SERP, my experience is in teaching. So she advised me not to like because that we won't count. But I also have like worked not work, but work as a volunteer with Care Foundation,
Mhm.
with the Citizen Foundation. Again, that is like not a job. That is like extracurricular activities. So I want to know whether that would somehow supplement uh,
Yeah,
towards my
thank you.
experience. Yeah, towards my experience because
Right.
2 years experience is required, and I don't have like
Mhm.
anything related to public policy. Though I have applied to SERP twice or thrice in the previous years, I haven't
Mhm.
gotten in because SERP is particularly tailoring to students who have something skills related to quants, and the degree in philosophy and literature does not give you that, does not provide you that. So all I have is quants qualitative skills, not quant
Mhm.
skills. So I couldn't get into SERP. So I then taught at schools and do this volunteer
Mhm.
work with organizations. But now the director of Fulbright program said that no, we don't count teaching experience towards the public policy program. So how should I do? Should
Yeah,
I like
yeah.
change this
Right.
public policy program, or what should I do?
Yes. Thank you for asking this question, Abdul Wahid. I agree. I think if Rita is telling you that it doesn't count, then anything I say doesn't matter because she's the head of USAFP. But I do think that you can change your program to something else. Don't apply for public policy, apply for Masters in Education. Masters in Education, Harvard has an amazing Masters in Education program. It's a 1 year program. And if you've taught for 2 years, you already have a master's, you're in a very good position to apply for Harvard's education program. You don't necessarily have to go for public policy. And the good thing about universities here is that even if you apply for these programs, you you can always take courses from other parts. You can apply for this program, you can always take courses from other disciplines. So if you're interested in something particular that you can only be taught in public policy, you can always just take that course. But I would say that don't let go of this chance to apply for Fulbright just because you really want to go for public policy and you don't have that work experience. Instead of working for 2 more years and then applying for public policy, apply now, but just tailor your degree to a program that aligns with your career goal, with your previous experience. So you can definitely apply for it. Just change your program. I mean, I changed my program too. I was very focused on hardcore strategic studies, and then I realized that, oh, another point. Yes, this also reminds me. I realized that LibSoft liberal programs are not very interested in taking people who go for hardcore areas. So don't apply for nuclear engineering. Don't apply for biomedical engineering. I mean, you can apply for biomedical engineering, but they normally delay your visa because they want to vet you thoroughly to make sure you're not a threat to their country. But don't apply for nuclear engineering. Don't apply for things like these. And I also learned it. I learned it the hard way. My application got rejected. So when you apply for a program, make sure that it's in line with what you've done previously, and then also, just just see what your experience has been up till now and tailor it. So education program would be really good for you, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you,
yeah. I
Verda.
mean, I can apply for like maybe education then, because actually I want to like do a shift from like career shift, and like I have done studied literature for like past four, five,
Mm-hmm.
6 years, and I have taught at schools. I see that the problem with Pakistan education system is like a single teacher cannot like tackle that. Maybe it's a problem on the policy side. So that is what I was like trying to
Hmm.
address after like
I
studying public
understand.
policy, because yeah.
Yeah.
But I can do education
Hmm.
as well. Yeah.
No,
Thank you for the explanation.
I think your thought process is amazing, and it's a shame that they don't allow people to apply for public policy without 2 years of extremely relevant work experience. But I really hope you can find another way, because I'm sorry, I cannot really answer that question, but I do understand the dilemma.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
What
mean,
was
yeah. Thank you.
No problem, no
Thank
problem.
you for like
Uh,
explaining. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Imama, my GRE score, I remember I got a better verbal score than a quant score. My quant was like 152 or something, and my verbal was 158. But yeah, but also that year, Columbia didn't require GRE. So I got GRE for Fulbright, but Columbia was like, we don't need GRE this year. So I was like, thanks. But I'd also taken lots of quant courses in my undergrad. So Columbia asked for a quant CV as well. So when you apply to a university, it depends what their individual preferences are. So apart from one regular CV, I had to submit a separate quant CV as well. And for them, GRE didn't matter. Hassan, what scholarship I apply for my final year, which don't require returning home? Hassan, I would say you apply for direct university scholarships. A lot of people get full funding from universities as well, but the only problem with those scholarships is that they don't cover your ticket or, just any added visa expenses or stuff like that. So if you get a direct scholarship from the university, you obviously won't have to return home, but then you can, you still won't have to pay tuition, so that's good. But if you only do that if you can cover your flight, your visa fee, the international student fee, service fee, etc., everything. Oh, I think that answers all the questions, unless anyone has any other question that they did not write in the chat box. Oh, I remember, Sami, you raised your hand and then you dropped off. Do you want to ask that question now?
Yes, ma'am, I have a question. First of all, thank you so much for this incredibly informative webinar. Ma'am, I have a question regarding the sort of general application process. Like, I'm a recent IT graduate, and my field is quite irrelevant, but I have a generic question. So, what I do is I approach to universities professors of US. Like, this is my profile, and I'm interested in your research area. My aspirations aligns with your goals, so I'm
Mhm.
willing to work under your guidance at your lab as a research assistant or teaching assistantship. So this is the way process, a sort of way I'm actually targeting these days. So my question is, I've applied to two of the US universities because I got the really positive response from the professors through email. So my question is, few of the universities application require personal statement and few require statement of purpose like SOP and personal statement. So I have researched a lot, but I still have quite a bit of confusing about like what is the key difference between both of them. So can you explain or elaborate on it, like what is the difference between both of these?
So one, it depends on each individual university. Normally, statement of purpose and personal statement are considered the same if they don't specifically ask for a separate study objective statement as well, the way Fulbright does. So Fulbright has created this distinction between study objectives and personal statement, and then they also give you a prompt that explains how both of them are different. But if the university you're applying to simply asks for a statement of purpose, that means you should mention your study goals in that statement. You should also mention your career plans. It should basically be a mix of both study objectives and personal statement that you submit for Fulbright. So statement of purpose, all of them normally give a prompt before it, so that should help with that. But then if you're, let's say, applying to, I don't know, UC Berkeley or something, then you can always look up sample statement of purpose or personal statement of people who got accepted in the past, because that will give you a better idea. Generally, it's the same. because if a university doesn't divide the essays into 3 or 4 statements and it's only one statement that you have to fill out, then they want you to write everything in that statement. But just don't throw words out there. Just try to find a creative way to be super concise, to the point, and organize your statement better. So if it's just a statement of purpose they've asked, talk about your study goals, talk about your career plans, things you've done in the past, things you want to do in the future, how you want to help the community, all of it, but link everything to each other so it's an organized statement. When I applied for Fulbright asked me for a statement of purpose, personal statement and study objective. But when Fulbright sent my application to Columbia made me fill out their entire application separately as well. So they asked me to write 4 different essays. So the first essay was entirely study objectives. The second essay was entirely what I bring to the university in terms of cultural exchange. The third essay was entirely about my career plans. And the fourth essay was anything I wanted to tell them about myself that I didn't share with them in my other 3 statements. So I hope that answers your question, Sami.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Ma'am, I have one more questions. Like
Yes.
I've crafted my personal statement, but I'm not that good at writing, so I used generative AI to create my SOP. But I wasn't entirely dependent on that. But I
Mm-hmm.
used few synonyms to reduce the AI generated text score. So my
Mm-hmm.
personal statement has like 1% of plagiarism. I have checked it through Turin. It's
Mm-hmm.
paid platform and the most effective one. So my plagiarism in my personal statement is about 2% because it is actually personal and very personal, highly personalized about all about my story. And the
Mm-hmm.
AI generated text score is about 30%. Like AI generated generation is detected. So is it okay?
Mm-hmm.
Like plagiarism is 2%, but the AI generation is about 30%. Is it okay, or should I reduce the AI much even more?
Uh, I think try to reduce AI even more. It's kind of a given that everyone uses AI nowadays to apply for these places, and everyone, even in my university, it's part of the academic code of conduct that you can use AI once you've written something originally yourself. So it's kind of a given that everyone uses AI to, sort of improve their writing. But I would recommend reducing it a bit more. Um, as long as your statement is highly personalized, you've shared your individual experiences, then it should be good because they know that people put the final draft into AI and then get AI to embellish it a bit. Ataula, I'm a graduate, fully funded scholarship. Ataula, I don't know if you heard that when I explained this earlier. Fully funded scholarships, other than Fulbright, fully funded scholarships are available by individual universities. So you can pick a university, you can write to them and check what scholarship options are available, but you can also apply for different third-party fully funded programs that are in partnerships with lots of universities. So apart from Fulbright, that's one way you can get a fully funded scholarship. And Afghan refugee student leave in Pakistan. I'm not really familiar with the process for fully funded scholarships for Afghan refugees in Pakistan, but for Fulbright, I know that they do give Fulbright scholarships to Afghan refugees, but more particular information can be given to you from USCFP. So I would recommend reaching out to them. How should we answer questions like what we bring to the table? Lisa, you can always talk about any past experience that you have had with someone from a different country. For example, if you went on an exchange program, you even went abroad for something, or if someone came to your university on an exchange program, sharing a particular experience from the past always helps, adding credibility to you. So you can do that. But second, in terms of cultural diversity, tell them that I would like to maybe change the perception that people have of Pakistan in the US, or I would like to change the perception that people in Pakistan have of the US. Um, um, Apart from it, cultural diversity, I don't know, talk about something specific that you think you're really good at, and then you can add it to your interaction with people here. I can make really good Pakistani food, so I plan on hosting Pakistani food events when I come to the US. Anything like that. So they're not looking for a particular question. They just want to know that you're comfortable with hanging out and being with people from different backgrounds. Hmm. I have answered all the questions. Are there any more questions? We're good? Aisha, do you want to take over?
Okay, I guess that's it for today. Let's wrap up our session. A huge thank you to Ifra for taking out time and sharing her amazing journey with all of us today. We hope you all find this session helpful. Stay connected on the social media platforms of Girls Fly for the future updates regarding future sessions or any other opportunities. See you all next time. Have a very good evening. Bye bye. Thank you, Ifra,
Thank
once
you so
again.
much. Thank you so much for all your amazing questions, and thank you so much for having me over. Bye bye.
Okay. Thank you. I'm about to end the meeting now.
Okay, okay, bye.